Book of Heaven, Volume 28, Part 3. April 12th, 1930. The acts done in the divine will are walls of light around Jesus. The sun, sower of the love of its creator. How the sun of the divine will forms its sun in the creature and acts as divine sower. My abandonment in the Fiat continues, and following its acts, I was thinking about and accompanying the most bitter pains of my sweet Jesus, and was saying to myself, oh, how I would like to defend Jesus and prevent his receiving new offenses. And he, moving in my interior and clasping me in his arms, told me, my daughter, if you want to defend me in a way that the offenses might not reach me, repair me in my divine will, because as you repair in it, you will form a wall of light around me, and if they offend me, the offenses will remain outside of this wall of light. They will not enter inside, and I will feel defended by this wall of light, that is, by my own will, and will remain as though safe. So your love in my divine will shall form for me a wall of love, of light. Your adoration, your reparations, will form for me a wall of light, of adorations and of reparations, in such a way that the lack of love, the scorns of creatures, will not reach me, but will remain outside of these walls. And if I feel them, I will feel them as though from afar, because my daughter has surrounded me with the impregnable wall of my divine will. My daughter, the love, the reparations, the prayers outside of my Fiat are just little drops, while in my divine will the same things, the same acts, are seas, gigantic walls, endless rivers. As immense as my will is, so it renders the acts of the creature. Then I was following the supreme Fiat in the creation, and my mind was lost in comprehending the continuous act of it toward the creatures, both through created things and directly. It carries us as though in its arms, to be our motion, our breath, heartbeat, life. Oh, if it could be seen by creatures what this divine will does for us! Oh, how they would love it, and would let themselves be dominated by it. But, alas, while we are inseparable from the divine will, everything comes to us through it. It is more than our own life. It is not recognized. It is not looked upon. And one lives as if we were far away from it. Then, while I was going around in the creation, my beloved Jesus, coming out from within my interior, told me, my daughter, all created things say love, but the sun, which with its light and with its heat has the supremacy over everything, is the sower of my love. As it rises in the morning, so it begins its sowing of love. Its light and its heat invest the earth, and as it moves from flower to flower, with its pure touch of light, it sows the variety of colors and of fragrances. and it pours the seed of love, of the different divine qualities, and of its loving fragrances, as it moves from plant to plant, from tree to tree. With its kiss of light it pours, in one place, the seed of the sweetness of divine love, in another, the variety of our loving flavors, in another, the substance of divine love. In some, there is not one plant, flower, herb, which does not receive the seed of our love that the sun brings to it. It can be said that it spends its day sowing love and irradiating all the earth, mountains, and seas with its light. Everywhere it sows the love of the eternal light of its Creator. But do you know the reason for this continuous sowing, never interrupted, which the sun does of our love over the face of the earth, and in so many ways? Perhaps for the earth? For the plants? Ah, no, all for the creatures. Oh, yes, for love of them, and to have the requital of their love. And oh, how wounded and embittered we remain when we see that creatures make use of flowers, fruits, and other things, without recognizing that in everything they take, there is the seed of our love, which through the sun we have poured over each created thing. And after so much love, an "I love you" is denied to us. Having said this, he remained silent. I remained afflicted because of so much sorrow of Jesus, and I continued my acts in the divine Fiat. And Jesus added, "My daughter, the sun, though untiring in acting as sower of our love over the earth, in the evening, in withdrawing, in order to form the day for other regions, seems to give peace to the earth, giving it the freedom to produce or not produce the seed it has sown, intending to make the new assault of the sowing of love. On the other hand, the sun of my divine will never leaves the soul, as it reflects itself in her with its light, and more than sun, acts as divine sower. With its reflections, it forms in her its sun in the creature. Therefore, for one who lives in my divine will, there are no nights or sunsets or dawn or daybreak, but it is always full day, because its light gives itself to the creature as her nature. And what is in one's nature remains as one's property. More so, since the sun of my divine will possesses the source of light, and as many suns as it wants to form, so many it forms. But with all this, even though one who lives in my will possesses her own sun which never withdraws, the sun of my Fiat has always new light and heat, new sweetness, new flavors, new beauty to give, and the soul has always something to receive. There are no pauses, as with the sun that is under the vault of the heavens. In fact, not possessing the source of light, it cannot form many suns as the earth keeps revolving around it. But with the sun of my divine volition, which possesses the source of it, its light always beats down. and calling the creature to continuous activity with it, it always gives her its new act, never interrupted. Fiat. April 18th, 1930. How all the first acts were done by God in Adam. Jealousy of the divine love. Guarantee and safety of the divine fiat for the creature. How, in the creation of man, all of us were present and in act, vivifying and nourishing virtue of the divine will. My poor mind feels the irresistible need to cross the endless sea of the supreme fiat. More than by a powerful magnet, I feel drawn to make my sweet dwelling in my dear inheritance given to me by my dear Jesus, which is his adorable will. It seems to me that Jesus awaits me now in one act done by his divine fiat, now in another, to give me his admirable lessons. So my mind was wandering in going around with its innumerable acts, and as I arrived at dear Eden, where everything was feast, my dear Jesus, making me pause, told me, "My daughter, if you knew with how much love the creation of man was formed, at merely remembering it, our love swells and forms new inundations, taking the attitude of feast in remembering our work, beautiful, perfect, as it placed in it such mastery of art that no one else can form one similar to it. And it was so beautiful as to reach the point of arousing in our love the jealousy that it be all for us. After all, man had been made for us. He was our own. To be jealous of him was a right of our love. And this is so true that our love reached such extent that all the first acts done in Adam were done by his Creator. So the first act of love was created and done by us in Adam. The first heartbeat, the first thought, the first word. In sum, for everything that he might do afterwards, there were our first acts done in him. And upon our first acts followed the acts of Adam. Therefore, if he loved, his love would spring from within our first act of love. If he thought, his thought would spring from within our thought. And so with all the rest. Had we not done the first acts in him, he would not have been able either to do anything or to know how to do anything. But by the Supreme Being's doing the first acts, we placed in Adam as many little fountains for as many first acts as we did in him, in such a way that every time he wanted to repeat our first acts, he would have these little fountains at his disposal, like as many different springs of love, of thoughts, of words, of works, and of steps. So everything was ours, inside and outside of man. Therefore our jealousy was not only a right, but also justice, that everything was to be for us and completely our own. More so, since we were giving him our divine will, that it might preserve him beautiful, fresh, and would make him grow for us of a divine beauty. Our love was not content or satisfied with so much it had given him. It wanted to continue to give always, It did not want to say enough. It wanted to continue its work of love. And in order to have him with itself, to have the way of interacting with man, it gave him our very will, that it might render him capable of being able to always receive and keep him always with us, with one single will. With it, everything was guaranteed and safe for him and for us. So he was to be our amusement, our joy and happiness, the object of our conversation. Therefore, at the memory of the creation of man, our love takes the attitude of feast. But in seeing him without the guarantee of our fiat, without safety, and therefore vacillating, disfigured, and as though far away from us, it takes the attitude of sorrow, and feels all the weight of our infinite love as though closed within itself, because it cannot give itself to him, for it does not find him in our divine will. But this is not all. It was not only for Adam that our love so poured itself, but it reached the point of doing all the first acts from which all the human acts were to have life. And each creature that was to come to daylight was present in that act of the creation of man. And our fiat, united to our love, ran and ran, and embracing all and loving all with one single love, it placed the primacy of our acts in each creature that would come to existence, because for us there is no past and no future, but everything is present and in act. If it were not so, our fiat would find itself constrained and hampered, nor could it expand its flame so much as to enclose all within its light, in such a way as to do in all what it does in one creature alone. Therefore, Adam was not the only fortunate one of creation, but all other creatures were enriched with all goods, and in him were the possessors of his same goods. More so, since in everything that God does in one single creature, all other creatures acquire the right of our acts, except for those who do not want to make use of them. Did the same not happen in the very redemption? As the sovereign of heaven had the good of conceiving me and of giving birth to me, all other creatures acquired the right of the goods of redemption. Not only this, but the right of being able to receive me, each of them, in their hearts. And only one who, ungrateful, does not want me, remains without me. Now, my daughter, Adam, by disobeying our volitions, lost our kingdom, and all the goods of our fiat remain for him without the nourishing and vivifying life of our divine will. It can be said that he was like the destroyer of the goods of the kingdom of my divine will in his soul, because in all goods, if the vivifying virtue and the continuous nourishment are missing, of their own, little by little, they lose life. Now you must know that in order to call back to life again these goods in the creature, one who would call back my fiat again into her soul was needed, and who would deny nothing to it, letting it dominate freely, so that it might administer to her again its vivifying and nourishing virtue, to call back to life the destroyed goods. And this is why my divine will, by subduing you, and by your letting yourself be subdued, has resumed its vivifying virtue in your soul, and calling you into its dwelling, it nourishes you in order to call back in you all of its goods, and all your acts that you do in it, your rounds upon rounds within its acts, your asking continuously for its kingdom upon earth, are nothing other than nourishments that it gives you, and it constitutes the right for other creatures to be able to receive again the kingdom of my divine will with the life of all its goods. When I want to do a good to all creatures, I place the springing fount of it in one creature. From this fount I open many channels, and I give to everyone the right to take the goods that the fount possesses. Therefore, be attentive, and let your flight in my divine will be continuous. Fiat. April 23rd, 1930. In creating man, God did not detach him from himself. Condition of necessity to love him. Final assault. The great gift of the divine will. Order which God had in creating man. It seems to me that my sweet Jesus wants to speak about the overflowing love with which man was created. He wants to tell its story as the outpouring of his intense love, so as to be compassionated by his little daughter, and tell her the reason why he loves us so much, and his right to be loved. So, while I was going around in the acts of his divine will, and I arrived at Eden, he resumed his speaking. Daughter of my divine will, I want to make known to you all the peculiarities with which man was created, to make you comprehend the excess of our love and the right of our fiat to reign in him. You must know that in the creation of man, our divine being found itself in the condition of necessity of love to love him, because everything we gave him did not remain as detached from us, but transfused in us. This is so true that, in breathing on him, we infused life in him, but did not detach our breath from the breath created in him. We kept it identified with our own in such a way that, as man breathed, we felt and feel his breath within our own. If our fiat created the word by pronouncing itself on his lips, the word, great gift given to him from within our divine volition, did not remain as detached. If we created in him love, motion, step, this love remained bound to our love, to our motion, and the communicative virtue of our steps in his steps. So we felt man inside of us, not outside of us, not the sun far away, but close to us. Even more, identified with us. How not to love him, since he was our own, and his life was in the continuation of our acts? Not loving him would be like going against the nature of our love. And besides, who does not love what is one's own, and what has been formed by him? Therefore, our Supreme Being found itself, and still is, in the condition of necessity to love him, because man is still the one created by us. His breath we feel within our own. His word is the echo of our fiat. All of our gifts we have not withdrawn. We are the immutable being, nor are we subject to changing. We loved him and love him, and this love of ours is so great that we ourselves placed ourselves in the condition of necessity to love him. And this is the reason for our many stratagems of love, and the final assault, as we want to give him the great gift of our fiat, that he may let it reign in his soul. In fact, without our will, man feels the effects of its life, but does not see the cause, and therefore he does not care about loving us. But our divine will shall make him feel who it is that gives him life, and then he too will feel the necessity to love the one who is primary cause of all his acts, and who loves him so much. Then I continued my round in the creation, and my always lovable Jesus added, "My daughter, see what order there is in the creation of the whole universe. There are heavens, stars, suns, all ordered. Much more so in creating man. Our divine being stretched out the order of our divine qualities, like many heavens in the depth of his soul. So we stretched out in him the heaven of love, the heaven of our goodness, the heaven of our sanctity, of our beauty, and so on. And after we stretched out the order of the heavens of our divine qualities, our fiat, in the vault of these heavens, constituted itself sun of the soul, which with its light and heat, reflecting itself in him, was to grow and preserve our divine life in the creature. And just as our divine qualities point out our Supreme Being, so do these heavens, stretched out in man, point out that he is our dwelling. Who can tell you the way, the love with which we delighted in creating man? Oh, if he knew who he is, what he possesses, oh, how he would esteem himself more, and would be attentive not to stain his soul, and would love the one who created him with so much love and grace. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 28, Part 3. Fiat.